Hey, I'm Tina with Accounting Pros. I'm the chief number cruncher and founder, and I'm here with one of my favorite people on earth, Mike Carnes from the Urban Collective. He's been a client for a long time, and he has a lot of really interesting information to share. So, Mike, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do at the Urban Collective?
Yeah, hi Tina. Thanks for having me. So at the Urban Collective, we are a commercial real estate firm, and we primarily work in the private capital sector. And with that, what that means from most of your viewers' standpoint is we work with people like them, small businesses and property owners who are not institutionally owned or corporately owned is really the wheelhouse that we play in. And with that, it's really important during times like this that we look at how can we be nimble and how can we negotiate. And most importantly, are there things that are out there that are levers that we can pull as tenants and landlords to help keep ourselves in business during this trying time? And the answer to that is yes.
Awesome. And I know that you have helped a few of my clients try to negotiate and just kind of make their way through, COVID-19 and their business and their rentals of their buildings, et cetera. So for somebody who is watching this and has no idea of, what you would do in this sort of situation, what kind of advice would you give somebody to work alongside of their landlord in order to maintain a positive relationship, but also be able to help them, keep afloat?
Yeah. So if you're a tenant and a business owner, which I'm assuming is who most of that question, that is the group that's directed towards. The most important thing for any tenant to know is any landlord out there does not want a vacancy.
Right.
And a vacancy going into this to a landlord was less impactful than a vacancy will be coming out of it. And the reason for that is vacancy rate. When a market is strong, the vacancy rate, the number of vacancies present in the market, usually hovers below the 5% category. When we come out of a situation like COVID, much like we did in 2008 during the Great Recession, so to speak, those vacancy rates in some markets grew upwards to 40, 50%.
Wow. Yeah, I remember seeing like what seemed like whole buildings like empty at any given time when I was in Phoenix. It was crazy.
Correct. Yeah. And so what that means to that owner is they either need to be the fanciest car on the block, right?
Right.
They need to be the cheapest rate. They need to give away the most ever because the tenants have all the leverage in the world for what they negotiate. And they need to do all these things, which is most likely at a time when, as the building owner, they're feeling the most pain themselves.
Right.
And so then you have to look at the lag time it's going to take to absorb that amount of inventory back into the market. And so what most sophisticated owners, people who have been through this before, and for most of the tenants out there listening or watching, I should say, now that we're zooming everything, for most of the tenants watching, if you have a landlord who is sophisticated, who has been through the process before, they may be a little, they may say no at first because they want to collect the rent.
Sure.
And I have some interesting statistics that I have been following that I can share that I think will be helpful for everyone, but they want to collect the rent for as long as they can. So they're going to say no as long as they can.
Right.
And then they're going to start wanting to work with you. And then as long as their bank, their lender doesn't call the covenants of the loan due, which require that a certain amount of the building be occupied to continue servicing the loan, which I think is not going to happen this time around because 2008 taught most lenders that they don't want to take on real estate, because what they ended up doing in 2008 was they were servicing debt on what essentially was the owner's liability of trying to occupy and restabilize their asset. And then they increased the bank's liability by taking all those assets back.
Right.
So they, in essence, doubled their own dilemma, their own demise. And that's what
Right.
took so long to come out of 2008. I think they've learned from that lesson this time around. So they're going to give owners a lot more lenience this time around.
Okay.
And in return, those owners should be willing to give that leniency and pass that through to their tenants. Because a vacancy coming out of this, I would anticipate we're going to see a much larger vacancy rate than we had in 2008. And a
Right.
vacancy coming out of this could be a much longer period of time with no income coming in on the property at a time when they're feeling the most pain, rather than working with tenants now when everybody has a little money in the bank. And if we
Sure.
can just work together on this, we can get through it.
Sure. So I'm interested in hearing some of those statistics that you mentioned a second ago. So what do you have?
Yeah, so a few interesting statistics that I've seen and heard, and keep in mind as a company, as a collective here, what we do is we work together as one team. And by that, in most commercial real estate in companies in the industry, they will have a team that's designated to work only in the industrial sector. And then they'll have a team that's designated to work only in the office, another one for apartments or multifamily, and other ones for retail, and the list goes on through hospitality land and so on and so forth. What we do here as a company is we are community focused and geographically focused. So we say in Denver anyway, if it's within a 2-mile radius of downtown, we work on all of it, and then we work together. And each person on our team has expertise in the different sectors. So with that being said, I am tracking every sector right now and following vacancy rates on all of them.
Right.
What I can tell you is because of the type of restriction, the shelter in place, and whether you're a what are they calling it, a business of necessity or
Essential business,
essential
or
business,
yeah.
which I am, and I don't even know what it's called, but it's because I've been too busy doing other things for other people to track that.
Right.
But as an essential business, a lot of the essential businesses are the people who are working the blue collar jobs right
Sure.
now. And so as a result, the industrial sector is strong. It's really strong. So in that industrial market, where there's manufacturing, production, and they can't hire enough people. And so in the real estate side of things, a lot of those landlords are sitting pretty well.
Okay. So you might have less leverage in that type of industry?
You would, as a tenant, you would likely have less leverage in that type of industry. But also, if you are a tenant in that industry right now,
You're probably okay.
You're okay enough that you're not this far through our call.
Sure. Okay, got it.
So, in the multifamily industry, we'll start there because I think a lot of real estate starts with housing. And whether it's residential or commercial, real estate itself, and that's the two, sectors of real estate. You got residential housing where we live, and then commercial, which is, I always joke and say the housing are homes, and real estate is commercial real estate. But what you see, it all starts in housing. So in the single family residential market, in the month of March, we saw residential new home loans in the Denver MSA anyway. They dropped 30% from February.
Okay.
Now that doesn't sound like a lot, but if you look at the big picture, March is the start of the summer sales season for most people.
Right.
So normally that number is a growth model, not a loss model.
Sure.
So if you take what it normally would grow, you're looking at almost 100% drop in new home mortgages from February to March. Okay. Now, if we take that and look at the fact that shelter in place started mid-March and apply forward, and look at the unemployment numbers that have basically doubled every week over that time period that we've been in shelter in place, I would anticipate that number is going to continue to drop.
Okay.
And so with that then translates into multifamily sector. The multifamily sector, which is where a lot of people who are tenants, where we rent. Right. There's been a lot of apartment buildings built in Denver. I mean, I think the number was like 25,000 new apartments came online in the last 3 years when I last checked. 70% of the tenants in those buildings paid rent at the start of this April month.
Okay.
30% were unable to pay rent. I would anticipate that number is going to cut in half again for May.
You mean the number of people paying rent? So you think it'll be 35% of people paying rent?
It's going to be less than 50 for sure.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah, because the unemployment rate is almost tripled since the first.
Right. Yeah.
So that's the first thing that I then look at there is there's going to be some pain with those owners. And then the question is in those apartment buildings is how many of those tenants are actually going to renew, or how many of those tenants are going to go home and live in their parents' basement. And
Right.
we're going to see another cut in half on that. So
Sure.
that sector is just, it means that there's going to be a lot of potential for growth coming out of this. But for the time being where we are, that sector is going to feel some pain. A lot, and that's really important to track because a lot of the private capital investors who most likely own the buildings that your clients are situated in,
Right.
not tenants, but your clients,
Mm-hmm.
they typically, just like any other investment vessel, they want to diversify their holdings. So they'll typically own an industrial building, a multifamily property, an office building, a retail building or two, and that's diversifying their holdings because the sectors tend to climb the market cycle and drop into the low point of the market cycle at different times within that cycle.
Sure.
So that's how, as an investor, you protect yourself. Well, if you're feeling pain on an apartment building to the tune of, 70%,
Right.
that pain is going to translate across the rest of your portfolio.
Right.
So that right there is one important metric for your clients who are negotiating with their landlords. Some of them may have gone out right out of the gate and tried to negotiate and been unsuccessful.
Mm-hmm.
My first bit of advice to that is give it 60 days and try again.
So if let's say that somebody is trying to work with the landlord, they said no initially, and now they want to go back and renegotiate. What are some of the ways, like what sort of language can they use, or what steps would they take to do this? And I'm sure that they want to have a positive relationship with the landlord, not an adversarial relationship. So what can they do to recognize that the landlord is also struggling, but honor their own needs as well, and work together successfully to come up with a plan and make sure that both sides are happy at the end of the game? Because you said, like, if we've got 50, 60, 70% of people not paying rent, one person paying rent is great, even if it's not the same amount of rent. So, what sort of steps should they follow in the situation?
Well, I think first and foremost, open communication. I would start with open communication, say, this is what we're seeing in our industry. What are you seeing as a landlord? Some landlords will be open to communicating back, most won't, but at least try. And the reason why it's important to start the open communication as early as possible, because even though they may not want to communicate back now, there's a high likelihood that they're going to want to start engaging in that communication at some point down the road in the next few months. I think right now everybody is on pause, waiting to see what happens because we've never been through this before. No one knows.
Yeah.
So I would start with the open communication. And then from there, I think a very, very important step, and this is where you become as accounting pros, your systems that you have in place, I think are going to be instrumentally helpful to these people, is start showing forecasts of what your business could look like. I know that I evaluate my spotlight report. I reached out to my bookkeeper, Christy, this morning via email and said, hey, Christy, let's find time next week where we can go through my spotlight report together, because I know I'm getting ready to have a conversation with my landlord here.
Right.
And I want to be prepared. And I think it's important to say, here's how we have worked in the trailing months. Here's what we anticipate as a pro forma moving forward. And with the trailing versus pro forma, you want to run a really key metric, which is your occupancy cost. And an industry standard occupancy cost is 10% of gross revenue.
Okay.
You should never spend more than 10% of your gross revenue annually on what you occupy as your rent.
Right.
So if you can demonstrate to the landlord, this is what I anticipate as my metric moving forward over the next 3 to 6 months, I need to adjust my rent accordingly. Because of that, most landlords are going to see that you've actually applied thought and process to the situation.
You're not just picking a number out of the sky.
You're not just randomly picking a number out of the sky. And especially for the landlords that have multiple properties or portfolios of properties who are feeling pain and things like that, they're going to be so appreciative of how prepared your client is when they approach them.
Sure.
And even if at first they were apprehensive to have that open dialogue, they will most likely kind of slowly let those walls down and start having that dialogue. Because at the end of the day, real estate is really interesting. You start as a tenant on one side, you start as a landlord on the other side, and then you negotiate across the line of scrimmage to get to a place where you occupy their space and pay them rent. But the day that that rent commences, ultimately you guys go into business together.
Sure.
Their success is 100% relying on your success.
Right.
And so I would say another key thing to the open communication is when you're having that communication, always know in the back of your head so that you're speaking with confidence through this troubling time. And it's hard to look forward when things are doing what they're doing out there and say, I have confidence in this. Right. But speaking confidence and knowing that you are in this together with your landlord.
Right.
You need to portray that point to them first and foremost.
Right. No, I appreciate that. And going back to the using real data to be able to project forward, you're in Spotlight Reports, which is great. A few of our other clients have really enjoyed doing the projections in that program. And I like it a lot. There's one feature that I think is really fantastic that other programs don't have. So if you're just doing like budgeting or attempting like a forecast in Zero, it's either, you apply a number. So it's just like, you're going to say, I'm going to make this month. I'm going to spend this month. You can increase or decrease something incrementally, either by a percentage or a dollar amount. But with the budgeting and forecasting and Spotlight, you can actually have things ride on other things. So for example, if I expect my business to make, $100,000 this month and then $110,000 next month, or whatever that number may be, you can have the operating cost, go back to that gross revenue and say, I want 10% of my gross revenue to be applied towards my operating cost. And so there's not anything that you have to do aside from just setting that up and, behind the scenes. So there's not like fancy spreadsheet work to do or anything like that. And it'll actually pull in live data from your Zero file as well. So we can say, is this accurate? And let's project forward based on what actually happened. So rather than having to reinvent the wheel every single month, you can, if you want to have continued conversations with your landlord and provide to them detailed financials that show them that you're making the effort, then you can have your accountant publish those financials, and it's based on the information that you had already told it to do to begin with. So it's a lot less cumbersome than if you try to do it just like in an Excel spreadsheet.
Very intuitive.
Yeah, exactly.
It's about using Zero and the Spotlight reporting.
Yeah, for sure.
And then another tool, just if you don't mind me adding to that, the graphs and charts that come with both Zero and Spotlight are incredibly helpful when working with a landlord, because despite what most people may think, most landlords are not that sophisticated.
Okay.
Some are, but a lot are not.
Okay.
Or people have inherited their real estate.
Sure.
Or they kind of went out and bought something, not knowing what they were getting. There's 101 reasons why people aren't always that sophisticated. Also, there's a generational, a lot of people use real estate for a retirement vessel.
Sure.
So sometimes your landlords are not necessarily of the age demographic that they're following the latest trends in technology.
Sure.
But if you can put that visual chart there in front of them and say, see that pink pie? That's the one that I cut out last month.
Right.
I've reduced this orange pie in half, and you can start showing and that tool with a lot of landlords will be incredibly helpful. I mean, it's a very valuable tool.
Well, I would say, not even those who have inherited things or have, generational, wealth built into real estate, like anybody that is in business, I think that they would probably be more excited to see something more visual than look at black and white numbers, because it's really hard to see trends over time when you're looking at black and white numbers. You really do need to see how things work alongside of each other, and how much maybe costs, like a particular cost may represent. And if you're just looking at like a number on a screen or on a PDF, it's very challenging unless you have that sort of mind that can easily kind of put it together. I need to have things like, okay, where are we now? Where are we going? Are we on the right path? Kind of visual, or else I feel like I'm totally lost. So I think that would be applied to really anybody, business owner or not. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. I think that's a really valuable point.
Right. So in these conversations that they're having with their landlords, are these going to be things like phone calls, emails, letters? Like, what do you think is the best way to communicate this?
Well, I mean, in today's day and age, Zoom is great because it puts a face with the conversation.
Sure.
A lot of landlords love hiding behind their brokers and they love hiding behind the phone.
Right.
If you can have a Zoom and have it face to face, that'd be great.
Right.
I would say second best would be a direct call.
Okay.
And if you're having no luck there, then that is where you would insert your broker.
Sure.
Whoever it was that helped get the space in the first place,
Mm-hmm.
reach out to them. Try and do as much of it without their involvement at first. It'll go
Okay.
a long way in the long run. But in the end, if you have to involve them, do so. The reason why I always say wait till the end is because most brokers, they're, they're feast or famine. I mean, I am a broker, so I can say this comfortably. But, we're all money whores. We always want to be compensated for the work done. So,
Wait, I think that's everybody. I don't
yeah.
think that's just brokers. It doesn't just stop there.
Yeah, no, very, very true. But,
Okay.
brokers are paid on success. And when
Okay.
they succeed at doing something, they want to be compensated for their time. And they will
Sure.
usually work that into the renegotiation. However, there's a number of them out there. I've got a lot of friends and colleagues in the market that, as a collective, we've worked together as a company up until now. What I've seen in our own little inner circle is all the independents that I've worked with across the market here in Denver locally, as well as in Southern California, because I've done some stuff out there. We're all kind of getting together and starting to really work cohesively together. And just the barriers have dropped completely. And so I've got friends in town who all they do is work specifically with tenants. They don't do anything else. Interestingly enough, I'm having this conversation with you, and historically, we have never worked with tenants except for like one or two.
Right.
And we really had to like you to work with you if you were a tenant. So, but my friends who work with tenants, there are those out there that they are in it for the community. They see the importance and they are busting their butts right now for free.
That's awesome.
They just want to help their clients and their clients' friends.
Right.
Much like what I'm doing here with you now.
Right. Yeah. Kind of similar to what we're doing with their clients, trying to help them secure loans and get grants and get education, things like that. I mean, that's the only way I think we're going to be able to all collectively win is if we work together to find resources and, we help one another. If we're operating with a scarcity mindset and trying to push people away and get yours, dude, no one's going to win in that situation.
Well, and I love that you just used the word collectively. How could I not?
Given the name of your business.
Well, and that's there for a reason, right? That has been our personal company motto since day one. And
right.
when I started this and growing what is considered the bull market, right?
Right.
And I created this 2 years ago, this business model that, hey, we're going to all work together. And the day is coming, trust me. It's coming when we all have to work together. People were looking at me like, what? You're nuts. I'm going to go make my money.
Well, I don't think that those don't have to be mutually exclusive. I think you can make money, build a community, do the right thing. It doesn't have to be a me or you. It can be a me and you, which I think is an important way that you've been running your business. And I'm super impressed by that.
It's a win-win.
For sure. So I'm going to go, I have one question and then I have something else about Urban Collective, but going back to
also real quick, have a couple of those statistics.
Oh, yeah. Why don't you go first?
Okay. So some other interesting statistics. Let's see here. The IMF just announced it. And here's some things. Real quick. Let's talk 2008 versus now.
Okay.
I think that's really important because I think these are the most important statistics that I've been tracking personally. Because having been through 9/11 in this industry, then 2008, this is my third kind of downturn in the market. Okay? Right. The IMF just announced that they are ready to, and they're working through the ability to deploy $1 trillion internationally to not economic sectors, but to communities, to countries, to regions that need that.
Okay.
That is one thing that did not occur in 2008 because the money was all, just as we're in lockdown now, the money was in lockdown then.
Right.
Right. So I think that's a big difference. Another really interesting thing that I've been tracking that I think is really going to help us recover out of this is in 2008, everybody in Europe had their own monetary exchange.
Okay.
We have a euro now. There is the
Okay.
EU. They are working on a euro, and they are actually working through taking the German dollar and using it as leverage to help the Spanish dollar.
Interesting.
So that's kind of back to that collective approach that we were talking about. That's something that's very new because that's going to help the European countries and companies that are based in Europe who employ people in the United States. That's going to help them recover a lot quicker this time around.
Sure.
I think that's really positive. Um, Another thing that, let's see, I wrote some of these down. We discussed the home loans. Uh, the IMF is basically saying that we're going to see a contraction in the global economy by 3% as a
Okay.
result of this. Just to put that in perspective, in 2008, we had a global retraction of 1%.
Oh, okay. That
So
hurts.
2% more. And then to put that even into further perspective, prior to COVID, they were anticipating a global boost of 3.3%. So there's a 6.3% global
Drop.
difference
Yeah.
of where we were headed to where we're going to head.
Sure.
So what does that mean? It does not mean it's the end of the world. The lights are not being turned off. It means just be prepared to hunker down.
Right.
And so in hunkering down, there's going to be some tactics that we haven't really discussed that there's 101 ways to negotiate with your landlord. I could share a few examples if you'd like.
Sure.
But before I do, one last thing, Austria.
Hmm.
Austria has opened back up.
I saw that. Yeah.
And a very interesting thing, that I think with the COVID, at least here in Colorado, right? Even our governor and our mayor are all saying we've been watching other states and how they're performing because we were later, right? Well, the U.S. is doing the same thing in the world, and then it goes into whatever is happening with China, right? Or whatever the U.S. is accusing them of this week. So, an interesting thing in Austria that I heard on a NPR. I've been listening to a lot of NPR. NPR is my new friend. But they had
Yeah.
a great interview, and they had a great interview with an economist out of Austria.
Okay.
And one of the things that economist said was that they are opening back up, but they're starting slowly, and they're opening up, and this is really crucial fact, they're opening up only to businesses that are less than 660 square meters in size.
Okay.
So that means if your clients who are watching this are in less than 2,000 square feet, odds are that as we follow their trends, should their trends prove successful, they're going to get to open first.
Okay. That's
So
good news for a lot of small business owners who do occupy small spaces.
it's great news for a lot of business owners who occupy small spaces. It's even better news for your clients who are in the larger spaces, because that means that those landlords are most likely going to have to solve to this new COVID issue, should there not be a vaccine anytime soon, they're going to have to solve to demising their larger buildings into smaller 2,000 square foot spaces,
Okay.
which is incredibly costly. And it's best to have one tenant in there paying an incredibly discounted rate than have
Yeah.
to go have a
A build
vacancy
out.
and have to spend millions of dollars building out and demising their building.
Right.
So it's not the end of the world, and there is a way through this. So I just wanted to touch on that that was my last statistic I thought I'd share.
No, that's super interesting. I mean, I like the idea that there's going to be maybe the ability for smaller businesses to open, because those are the ones who are struggling a lot right now. I mean, and then being able to have leverage is also great. So it's really good on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hopeful that things will be opening up soon. I think we still have a little ways to go. I mean, the restaurants were supposed to open in Denver May 11th. Personally, I think we're going to get that pushed back a little bit just because of the infection rate right now in Colorado. And I have clients that are all over the United States, some of which didn't have to close until very recently. So I think this is going to be different state to state. And there's lots of other ways to earn revenue other than being in your physical space. We have gyms, for example, that are doing online classes versus doing in-person classes. I'm learning how to bake since I have free time, and I'm taking a baking class online. So there's ways to generate revenue, but really the bread and butter, the real money is to be made in probably in the normal way of operating your business. So this is just something to tide people over with the hope that they can get open up again. And in the meantime, negotiate to be able to stay in business longer, working with their essential, partner in their business, which is the landlord.
And I think for those who, if it does stagger out, like the smaller businesses, like you said, open first. And I do believe that's going to happen. I think that for the larger businesses, the message is, how can we run and pivot our business model to be a small business, a smaller business, or even a multiple pronged small business where we have, instead of being under one 7,000 square foot roof, and I use the restaurant because you mentioned restaurant. I use this as an example. The way that we in real estate determine restaurant success going into the real estate is we measure their average pre-tax tip bill. So what is your average bill per person before taxes and tip? Okay. And then we multiply that by the number of seats that are able to be put into the space.
Right.
And then we say, how many times a night is this restaurant going to turn the
tables? Yeah.
And then what do they need to do in gross revenue to stay within their 10% occupancy cost?
Right.
Okay. So let's say you're a restaurant that's in a space that you have to do 500 covers a night. And when we come out of this, one of the requirements and restrictions that's put in place is social distancing, which means that if you're going to open, yes, you're going to be able to open for the public to enjoy. However, you're going to have to remove half the tables in your restaurant in order to be open.
Right.
How do you hit that number? You don't. So my concern is not, when do we come out of this shelter in place? When do we come out of this lockdown? When can we get back to business? My concern is, what are the 6 months to 8 months following that going to look like for everyone? And is everyone doing their part now to prepare for that pivot so they can hit the ground running when it happens?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Really big, really crucial piece of the puzzle, in my opinion.
And I think now is the time, if you're not working in your business day to day, like you don't have customers coming in, life looks a little bit different, but business is still, happening. You should be looking at your numbers. So understanding, what should I be trimming? What should I be working on improving? If you don't know your occupancy costs, and maybe now's the time to get someone to work with that can help you sort that out, or put a system in place. But I've met a lot of people over the last couple of weeks offering, ad hoc advice, and a lot of people don't even know some of the really basic things that they should know. What's my gross revenue? What's my net? What am I making net? What am I paying for my people? What are my occupancy costs? What's an EIN? I mean, it's just really simple stuff. So take the time to do the work now, because you don't want to look foolish when you go talk to your landlord, or when you go talk to a bank, or when you're just trying to negotiate with really anybody, or really understand what the next steps are. Because without that foundation, you're pretty much, you're in uncharted water. You have no idea which way to turn or what dials to turn, because you're essentially lost. So you need to at least have that path to start with.
The new best friend, your gross margin.
Right.
Gross margin like there's no tomorrow.
I'm also a fan of net, but yeah.
Well, yeah, but I'm talking from a real estate perspective.
I know.
Yeah, no, it's all about the net.
Okay. Yeah, because you can make a lot, but then if you spend everything at the end of the day, you still have zero in the bank.
Increase your net and track your gross. It's a big, easy percentage to track. So
right. And if you're going to apply for even things like the economic injury disaster loan, they require what your gross profit is and what your cost of goods sold is. And I've had to explain to a few people what those words actually mean. And I think as a business owner, you should be spending the time on that. It is your absolute duty to keep your business going, to support your community, support your employees. If you don't know the basics, and you're putting their livelihoods at risk, not just your own. So it's way bigger than just you. Yeah. So question about the negotiation. I know that you said that you had a few ideas, but let's say that they get through this negotiation successfully. They're able to show, what the plan is, that they have cut things with their budget, and they have an idea of what they can spend, and, what they expect to be able to afford. Are they going to get like a revision of the lease in writing, or what are they going to do so that the landlord doesn't come back and, hurt them later on? Or I want to make sure that everybody's on the same page, essentially.
Yeah. You obviously want to have that in writing. I mean, as you're having that negotiation, email is great because it comes with an automatic time date stamp, right? So, and it's a way to put it all into one thread, track that thread, so on and so forth. And then would a simple one-page amendment to the lease, just amending the terms,
Okay.
will suffice.
Got it.
And so let's just real quick talk about that, because everybody instantly wants to go, I can't afford rent. I gotta get free rent, right?
Right.
Like that's everyone's first step. And it's never that easy. So let me just kind of share with you what I am planning on doing with my landlord as an example. Okay.
Yes.
We have our pipeline is robust enough that I feel that we are going to likely make it through this. However, right now, as a collective, as a business, I have to look at what is the one expense that if I need to cut something, I should anticipate cutting, and it's rent.
Mm-hmm.
I would rather have that money come in the pipeline and invest it back into my people than into my landlord's pocket. And I think a lot of your clients that are going to review this are going to feel the same way. It's our people that make our businesses as successful as they are.
It is, yes.
And we want to invest back in them, And so with that, I am taking my metric of success for keeping my people on board, and I'm comparing that to my rent, and I've determined what the difference, the delta is. And then I'm going and asking my landlord for a rebate in rent over a 6-month period for that time period. And you notice I said 6 months. I didn't say 30 days, 60 days, because it goes back to my statement of I'm concerned of what 6 to 8 months is going to look like down the road.
Yeah, I am too.
Yeah. So I'm asking for 6 months. And anyone who is on this, who's made it this far in this call, wanting to listen to my blah, 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 my blabber, they should be thinking the same way. This should be whatever you're negotiating, negotiate for the calendar year of 2020. Do not negotiate for 30, 60, 90 days.
Okay.
So I'm negotiating for 6 months. I would go longer if it weren't for the fact that I am a professional acquaintance of my landlord, so I have to maintain some kind of, etiquette there. But I've determined the difference. I'm taking that and I'm saying to him, because I have the resources available now at the start of this, as opposed to 6 months from now, I'm going to go to him and say, I would like to cut my rent in half for 6 months, and I will pay you the first 3 up front.
Got it.
And the first 3 up front is the equivalent of where I would be in 3 months at normal rent.
Sure.
Sorry, the first 3 up front is where I would be next month in my normal rent by cutting it down in half, and I'm working out the expenses.
Right.
Of course, I'm talking, that math obviously doesn't add up as I'm saying it.
It's a month and a half, right?
I'm talking round numbers here.
Right. Okay.
So with that, then I will take the balance. My second offer then is to take that balance of the amount that I'm not paying and recast that out across the second half of 2021. Because even though it's going to be ugly for 6 to 8 months is my assumption, it also, the economy doesn't turn on like a light switch. It's more like taking an aircraft carrier and pulling it out to harbor and sending it to sea. It takes a while. You got to start one engine, and then you got to start the next engine, and then you got to point it in the right direction, and then get the momentum, blah, 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 blah. Again, back to my blabber. So we have to look at, okay, what does that look like for me, and how long do I have to conserve these costs? And I would safely say 12 to 18 months. So you want
conserving costs 12 to 18 months.
12 to 18 months from an occupancy standpoint.
Right.
And that landlord, just so you know, in 18 months, if this continues to get worse, you're going to renegotiate in 12 months when that comes due, or 18 months, whatever that magic month is.
Right.
You're probably going to, if this gets worse, you're going to be able to renegotiate an even better deal then.
Sure.
So,
but if you're not spending the time to think through this, then you won't have the opportunity to renegotiate. So now's the time to start planning for the next 6, 8, 12, 18 months with the idea that belts are going to be tightening all around. And, through this partnership, you will both be able to, continue on together.
And if you've been in a building for a long time, everybody's different. Some people are new. Some people have been in their location 2 months. Some people have been in their location 20 years.
Right.
If you've been in a location for a long time, it should be an easy call. You call your landlord and say, look, I need 6 months rent forbearance. We're going to pop it onto the back end of my lease term. So my last year is 6 months longer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm paying you that annual escalated amount at a higher rate. So in the end, it's going to put more money in your pocket, and it's going to deliver you a higher return for working with me today.
Right.
And I've been here for 5 years, so you know I'm a good paying tenant.
Right. I guess that you should probably have that relationship to start. So if you're not a good paying tenant, you probably will have a harder time.
If you're not a good paying tenant, you've probably already vacated.
Right. Okay, got it.
You're probably already vacated, and you're re-strategizing to redeploy when we come out of this on the back end, which a lot of people are. And hey, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean,
yeah,
it's what these times cause. It's what happens in these times.
Right. And I'd like to also add there are other programs, asking for a little bit of assistance from your landlord with the rent is great. There's also, I'm helping my clients with the Paycheck Protection Program, which can pay for 2 months of rent. The city of Denver has a grant program that you can, get some cash from. I have an enormous access to capital document that has lots of other states as well. So this is just one excellent tactic in order to help pay your rent, but there's many others out there. But this is excellent because I feel like the landlord-tenant relationship tends to be a challenging or confusing one because there's always one person that feels like they're powerless, and I would say that's probably the tenant.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Yeah.
But we also know from, or at least in my life, I've experienced it. Whenever I operate from fear,
Mm-hmm.
sell myself short.
Right.
So in this situation, it goes back to that statement I made earlier. Be confident. Do not operate with fear. Be confident in this situation. Because at the end of the day, you addressing it now as the tenant, that your client addressing it now is only going to benefit both parties. So be confident in that and know that, and don't operate with fear.
That's
and
good
the other
advice.
thing I just want to share real quick is I've given 2 very, very small examples. I've been doing this now going on 20 years. And the reason why I stay in this business, despite the amount of gray hair it's caused, the reason why I stay in this business, yeah, right. I did learn through the reason why I've stayed in this business is because with the thousands of deals that I've brokered, some buildings I've owned and sold and things like that, but the thousands of transactions I've done in my career, not one has ever been like the last, and I've always learned something new with each one I do.
Yeah.
So there's literally 101 ways, 1,001 ways, 10,000 ways that you can approach this situation.
Right.
And it's going to be different case by case by case. So if it's really important, if your client is kind of running into the wall, then that's when they may want to engage their broker, because their broker has more arrows in their quiver and may be able to get past that barrier. And even if it is a little bit of a cost to them or to the landlord, it'll more than likely be more than worth it. And so, I think a lot of people are trying to work together in this time more so than we experienced in 2008.
So if somebody's ending or coming to the end of their lease term with their current landlord is unwilling to negotiate and they're looking for a new place to rent, or they're maybe looking to buy but have maybe a smaller price point, or maybe bigger, I guess it depends on the client. Are you helping clients find places for their like commercial real estate right now, or are you able to actually show anything, or is that something that's on hold for the next couple weeks or month?
Yeah, great question. No, there is a way to show property. You kind of have to do it virtually. You can go and open it up, say hi to them from across the way. Luckily, our Denver sidewalks are, I think, 20 feet wide, so we can maintain our 6-foot distance. And you just open it up and let them go through and tour, and then you go back after and have a Zoom meeting about it, or your broker can walk through. And I'm seeing, especially in the residential sector, they're doing a lot of these virtual tours.
Yeah.
But at the same time, look, I built my reputation around integrity, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say, if somebody's thinking of buying right now, wait.
Okay.
Don't.
Okay, got it.
It's only going to get cheaper.
Okay.
You're going to get a better deal. Just put it on pause and wait. However, with that being said, commercial real estate's a lot different. Well, no, real estate in general is a relationship business. So if you don't have a relationship with a broker out there you can trust to help you buy when that time comes, use this time now to go build that relationship.
That's a good idea. Yeah, I appreciate that. Well, is there anything that you'd like to close with? I know I've talked your ear off and I've learned a lot, and hopefully the people watching this will be able to take something away from this, but anything else?
Just that I see a lot more empathy this time around. That was missing in 2008.
Yeah.
And there's less sharks swimming in the water. And I think that we're all going to get through this. And then myself, I'm obviously, for any one of your clients, available at any time. Feel free to share my contact info at the end of this. If it's somebody looking to just get some tips, they can email me. They can pick up the phone and call me. We have an answer. We luckily, when we set this business up, set it all up to be virtual, as I'm sure many clients have.
Right.
So we have a 24/7 answering service. They can call at any time. I will get the message. I may not call back in the middle of the night if it's keeping them up at night and it's a 3 a.m. call. My answering service will answer, but I will not call back.
You gotta get your beauty rest.
I will in the morning. It's or at the same time, if it is a situation where they're wanting to build a relationship with a new brokerage, myself or one of my team members will be more than happy to help in any way, and really just kind of guide everyone through the process now for success. At the end of the day, we are a community, and you did ask. I have to just kind of throw a little.
Okay.
Call it a plug. Call it whatever.
Yeah.
But you asked about how I'm working with the community during this time. So, ironically enough, we started redesigning our website before this occurred. Mm-hmm. That was a very expensive process. I too am cutting costs. So I've put that on hold. So we as a team are working together right now to build a little Squarespace site. It's just a simple go-to site. And we're actually building 3 of them and rolling them into one. One of them is going to be a podcast that we will be, a lot of these statistics, things that I hear, we will be hosting podcasts to just kind of have some rolling news about the market, what to expect, things that will be helpful to people that they can down the road go back when the time is right and track, hey, here's what we went through, here's the history of the changes.
Sure.
The other one is the one that I'm most excited about, because you mentioned you have clients who are in fitness, who are doing online fitness classes, you're taking a baking class. This is, we have ucollective.world.
Okay.
And this is what we're putting together. That's going to be the podcast, I think. I don't know, because I'm only one saying how this is shaping our team. I think ucollective.life is what's going to roll into ucollective.com.
Got it.
And in that, what we are going to do once we get it built, basically it's a restaurant website. So everybody can put their menus on there, the to-go menus, things like that. And we are going to, week by week, take turns feeding all the inbound information and posting it up there for people to go to as one resource. That includes video streaming of fitness classes, yoga classes, anything like that, that we just want to just put it all. That's one thing I have not seen yet. I haven't seen everything that is available, that is open, that is going to be available and open as we come out of this in one place. Mm-hmm. So that people can go to and say, okay, wow, I can go to this now. I can go do that. Right. So we're hoping to have that launched, at least a draft of it launched by the end of the week, but it'll likely be next week. And that's one of the ways that we're just trying to give back to the community. We're just trying to provide a platform where people can go to and see what's happening out there while they're sheltering in place, consuming mad amounts of alcohol.
Yeah, I think the virtual happy hour stuff is like very popular right now.
Yeah. Well, when this is over, I'm going down to my favorite store and buying. I realize I don't have any whiskey at my office, and I think that I need it.
I had a nice little collection of scotch at my office that as soon as shelter in place started to kind of like the rumors were happening, I just brought everything home. I'm like, well, it's time to bring this emergency liquor to where it needs to be.
I had a nice collection of a lot of things that I've gone through.
We won't talk about that in our poor livers.
No, not at all.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time for this. I know that all this information will really help anybody in my client base and really anybody who's going to watch it. I hope that they take the time to read everything that we put together for the blog that this is going to be on. Did they listen thoroughly? Did they reach out to you? Should they need a broker? Should they need some help? But I think you've done such a great job. So thank you for helping my clients and, helping other people as well in the process.
Yeah, and my pleasure. And thank you for having me. And most importantly, thank you for being such an amazing business person that you are, because it really takes innovators like you to help the rest of us get through this. I don't know if you know how much that means to myself, and I'm sure everybody else who's watching this.
I really appreciate that. I'm not going to cry on camera, though. You can't make me. Okay.
No, and I will.
All right. So with that, I'm going to end it. Bye, everybody. See you later.
See ya.